Harassment and stalking are crimes that can devastate victims' lives. And in some cases, tragically, they end in murder. And in a digital world, stalking can take place all too easily and frequently. This is the case of Amanda Playle. Amanda and her husband Paul were childhood sweethearts.
We got married in the Dominican Republic. My family came with me. I was actually lying by the pool. My dad sort of looked at his watch and went, "Don't you think you should go and get ready now?" All of us, all in that group, were so happy. We thought, this is it.
3 children followed and life was going well, but things changed in 2009.
Paul had been made bankrupt. He said he kept it from me so that I wasn't worried, and he thought he could deal with it, but it got out of hand. I realised that maybe we didn't have the money that he said we'd had. My husband lent him 23.5 grand to Paul, and he said, "Look, I'm lending you this," he said, "so that we can keep grandchildren in our home."
With their relationship on the rocks and financial worries, Paul suggested that they move for a fresh start away from Surrey to East Sussex.
I found myself a job, found myself some friends, and thought I could build a bit of a life here.
Over the next few years, life settled down and Amanda's confidence returned. She made new friends and was keeping in touch with old friends on social media.
I got a messenger from my Facebook, and the name on the message was the name of an ex-boyfriend, and I was like, oh. So I messaged back, "Oh, long time no speak, how's life treating you?" And I remember saying, life would be really good if someone picked me up, put me on an island with a good book and a cocktail, I would be in heaven.
When we get bored in our relationships and somebody makes us feel attractive, even though we know that we're not going to do anything about it, we kind of want to keep that for ourselves because it makes us feel good. And that's what's happening here. It's not deception, it's just wanting to contain that flirtation and enjoy it.
It probably was a little bit flirtatious, but nothing along the lines of, until one of the messages said, "How about meeting me for a drink and we can see where this goes?" And I was like, actually, I might not be very happy in my marriage, but that's not where I'm looking to go. It just, gone on with his life, gone on with mine.
Sadly, for Amanda, that wasn't to be the case.
All of a sudden, the whole thing just completely changed. I'd got a message with quite an explicit sort of, does your family know that you're this and you behave like that? And it was really quite rude and explicit.
He calls her names and he's very aggressive towards her, and that's a huge shock because remember, she'd been enjoying this really casual flirtation and now she's being threatened.
Phone would just bleep and bleep and bleep. You either couldn't delete it or reply quick enough. It was just insane. By now, I was getting WhatsApp messages as well as text messages, and it was just way out of control.
Whoever this human being is, they've managed to infect all her technology, making her feel that she's constantly visible. And that is absolutely horrifying because suddenly her very private world has become unsafe.
There'd be things on my Facebook as if I'd wrote a post, I'm leaving Paul, I want to start a better life with someone else. I didn't write that. And, I'd try and delete the post. And it went on for about a week, and in the end I was like, oh my goodness, I can't control my Facebook, but people are thinking I'm writing these posts. He was my rock. He was like, don't worry, we'll get you a new phone, we'll change this.
For a short time, the messages stopped.
I was in the shopping centre and my phone pinged, and it was an email, and it said the name again, and it was like, hello, I'm back. I instantly went, how the hell have you got my email address?
And then suddenly it comes back, but in a completely new context. It's stalking.
Reply, I can get anything I want. There's nothing I don't know about you. I used to run a lot. I liked running. And I'd get a message, just seen you go past. I'd be like, don't be stupid. Yeah, you're wearing a grey tracksuit, a bobble hat and night trainers. I'd be like, but you'd look around and there was no one there. But you look at everyone and think, are you him? I got an email one morning that said, oh, so you do listen to our song in the car. And I don't know why, I just knew instantly then that there was something wrong with my car. My car door was open just ajar and all my CDs were lined out on the front seat. And that's when I went, oh my God, this person has been to my home.
Imagine knowing that only feet away her violator has been. I mean, that makes you think, what next?
In a further twist, the stalker had somehow been able to contact other members of Amanda's family.
Everybody started getting these texts. He seemed to know where we was, where we were going, what we were doing. We were frightened.
My mum and dad would be getting emails going, oh, do you know when Amanda goes out? She's not actually with her friend, she's meeting me in a hotel and we're getting up to mischief.
I wanted Amanda to come home so we could keep an eye on Amanda, see what's going on, protect her.
It starts with that one nasty message and before you know it, someone's controlling your life.
In February 2017, having endured over a year of abuse, Amanda reported the stalking to the police.
She said to us that she was going to the police. And her dad said, I think that's a good idea. You should go, Amanda, take all your bits and pieces, go down to the police station. Paul didn't want her to go. We said to her, no. Well, her dad did. He said, no, you go down to that police station, Amanda. He said, we need to get this sorted out, to find out where it was coming from, and to end this, because you were worried every day.
They took a statement and it came back with, it's not a lot we can actually do, because there's no evidence. We'll give you a victim support number. It was deflating to pluck up the courage and go to the police and get that response.
Amanda wasn't aware that behind closed doors, Sussex police had passed on the statement and her case was to be reviewed.
I realised that we could probably look at some different lines of inquiry in terms of the online abuse and the accounts that were being used. We had some enhanced training around stalking provided by the charity called Paladin, coincided with this report kind of coming in. So I gave it to David, the case officer.
This person was hiding behind social media, hiding behind the internet, a faceless perpetrator. He was almost like a ghost. Some days, Amanda was getting 100 messages, and they were all formats, emails predominantly.
The behaviour that was being portrayed by the ex was really quite bizarre. There was some very, very personal information that was being sent to her about her extended family, and that really stood out. And then when I talked to Amanda on the phone and realised the scope of it, so it wasn't just herself being contacted, it was her husband, family members and friends, it had all the warning signs of a really high-risk stalking case.
Computer forensic work around the online profile of the stalker came back with insufficient information to lead them to the offender. Things, though, were about to take a dramatic turn.
We got a report, Amanda called us to say that her husband Paul had been mugged in London, and she said that the stalker had sent her a message saying something along the lines, it's going to be a bad day.
He'd a little bit of a black eye, said as they'd run past, they'd punched him and took the phone, and then he'd said, on his emails that the ex-boyfriend that was doing all this had said, ha ha, I've got your phone.
It looked like the stalker was now instigating assaults on her family, so hence the risk raised and police officer outside her door for 24 hours. We just didn't know what he was capable of.
Coming up, the stalker's identity is revealed.
I was told the message was, this beating's for your wife, tell her to watch her back.
So it was like someone ripping your eye out. You just could not believe it.
Amanda Playle had endured 14 months of hell at the hands of a stalker before going to the police. After chatting online with an ex-boyfriend, he turned abusive, carrying out a campaign of threatening harassment. Now the stalker had even targeted her parents and close relatives, armed with private personal details, causing the family to get suspicious of each other.
Well, my husband said, this is not coming from Mandy's ex-boyfriend. This person knows too much in our lives. He said, it's one of us in the family. He said, it's one of us. And I said, really? He said, it could be you. I said, what, me?
I've got to a point where I don't know who to trust anymore. Just thought, do you know what? All I've got is Paul. He's the only one that understands. He's the only one I can trust.
The police were building intelligence and were also growing increasingly concerned that the stalker was not what he seemed.
I got a phone call from Dave saying, could I come down to the police station, the local one? I remember it so clearly. We were sitting in a room, Steve come in, we did all the niceties, how are you, and chit-chat, and then he went, Amanda, we're going to go and arrest Paul. I actually thought I was going to be ill. I was like, but why? And he said, you know, and I remember saying, no, it's not Paul, it has to be this person.
When I told her, she just broke down in tears.
Felt like the world had just fallen away.
How could the man that she's known her entire life, the man that she's trusted, shared a bed with, raised a family with, be the one person trying to destroy her? So of course, she feels that they're incorrect.
It was like someone ripping your eye out. You just could not believe it. You couldn't take it.
Paul?
We went back with Amanda and I arrested Paul. If Paul was the stalker, the risk to her was significant psychologically, if not physically. His initial reactions were over the top, I would suggest. He began to hyperventilate, tried to look like he was in shock. I could see some traits in him that I'd seen in some other domestic abusers, mainly that kind of, I'm the victim in this, what are you doing this to me? We searched his car, and within his car, in the glove box, was the phone that he had reported stolen in Croydon. So I said to him, is that the phone that was stolen? And his reply to me was, I don't know. So following the first part of the interview, I went and examined the phone, turned it on. The first picture is him and Amanda at Disneyland. It's his phone. His response to that was the stalker must have put it in his car to stitch him up. I even said to him, you know, how is the stalker stitching you up? Because he didn't know you were going to get arrested. Because I didn't know you were going to get arrested till 10 minutes before I came and arrested you.
An iPad that was seized provided further revealing evidence.
Contained within that iPad was messages where he'd clearly logged into Amanda's Apple account. All her iMessages between her and her friends were within his messages. He also had pictures of messages on this iPad, which only could be taken from Amanda's devices.
I know that various accounts were tracked back to the home address, including one of the Facebook accounts by the ex, or in the ex's name. All stuff that was indicative of him being this person. We just needed to really concrete those connections.
Paul was bailed with conditions that he could not go home or contact Amanda. Despite that, the threatening messages and Paul's controlling behaviour continued.
The girls that I work with every May went on like a girls' holiday to Benidorm. Never ever gone on holiday on my own, ever. So I was like, I'm going to go.
But on the day that she was due to go, Paul went missing. Nobody could find him. And it was during that time that Amanda started receiving messages from Paul saying that I've now received messages from ex-boyfriend saying that when you go away, you are going to be kidnapped, you are going to be raped, don't go.
And about an hour before I was getting on the plane, I got a voicemail from Paul. Please be careful. He was really crying, where you're going. I was abducted last night and beaten up, and I was told the message was, this beating's for your wife. Tell her to watch her back in Benidorm.
Amanda went off. None of what Paul had said had happened. There was never any report made to the Metropolitan Police that there was an attempted abduction.
I spoke to him and he said, no, because if I make a statement, your life's in danger. And I said, but my life isn't in danger because I've got the police, I've got full protection.
We didn't quite have enough evidence, so if I'd arrested him at that point, we would have just ended up releasing him. So I had to manage the risk, but look at how I was going to deal with that situation.
With Paul firmly in their sights, the police waited for a breakthrough. It wasn't long before it presented itself. An interesting phone message from the so-called stalker.
In June, I was on the phone to Amanda, and it was while I was on the phone to her, she received a text message.
As usual, my phone was pinging crazy different messages, and one had popped up that was quite unusual. It was a picture, and it said, "Welcome to Gatwick," underneath with the message, "This is it, it's over now, I'm leaving the country."
I immediately phoned up our ANPR department, gave them Paul's registration number for his vehicle.
Gatwick is one of the most secure airports in the country. There's a lot of police cameras, access cameras into and out of Gatwick, and that allowed us to go and do ANPR searches, automatic number plate recognition searches. We were able to identify Paul's car going in to Gatwick 5-10 minutes before that message was sent to Amanda.
He's taken a picture of this Gatwick South Terminal, and then you see him leave it. Yeah, that was quite a pivotal moment.
That's why I made the decision that we'd go up and arrest him, because we knew we were going to get a charge at that point. The one thing I did with Paul was to talk to him about where he'd been on this particular time and date when this message had been sent. And he was very adamant to me that he'd finished work, he'd gone back to where he was living, he'd parked his car on the driveway, he went to bed. He had the car key. It's only one car key. No one else drives the car. So he was pinned to that account. So we got out a picture, which basically said, "This is your car driving into Gatwick," and asked him to account for that. And he couldn't. He had to concede it was his car.
It was time for police to reveal their trump card.
And we produced another picture, which is a picture of Paul with a phone in hand, basically taking the picture of the South Gatwick terminal that was then used in that message. And he denied it was him. He was wearing the same shoes he was wearing in the interview. And I could happily say, that definitely is you. He said it wasn't.
Paul was charged with Section 4A stalking and remanded into custody. Whilst being held, and up until Paul's trial, no further messages were sent to Amanda. On the 17th of November 2017, Paul Playle's case was heard.
So in terms of Amanda, through this investigation, it was evident she didn't want to believe it was Paul, and I totally understood that. So we ran that whole investigation, got all the way through to court before she truly believed it was Paul.
I got into the witness box and I was given a pamphlet of what the jury was seeing. It fell open on this picture of Paul stood at Gatwick taking the picture. And I looked at him in the dock, and I remember I just wanted to scream at him, "Really?"
I thought, so how could you do this to my daughter? The girl that you say you love, you've ruined her life.
Despite conceding he'd taken the photo in police interview, in court, Paul claimed he'd been forced by the stalker to take the photograph, concerned about his and the family's safety.
It was just farcical, absolutely farcical.
I just sat there and was, have you been watching a James Bond film to get this plot? Where did you get this plot from?
He was a pathological liar, had no real solid defence. He just kept saying, "It's not me, it's not me."
Just wouldn't take any responsibility for anything. It turned out that his iPad was a mirror copy of my phone. He had my Apple account on there. Every message, every email that I was getting, he was reading just as I was.
Paul has that sense of wishing to be a megalomaniac. He could be her persecutor and he could be her saviour. He liked playing the game of being the most important human being in her world.
The verdict was unanimous that he was convicted of both stalking and control and coercive behaviour. So you'd normally either get the control and coercion or you'd get the stalking. But he was doing both. Quite a unique conviction, I would suggest.
He was given a sentence of 3 years and 6 months for stalking and 3 years and 6 months for coercive behaviour. but the sentences ran concurrently. So, after serving a year and 3 months, Paul was released on licence in March 2019. A restraining order was put in place with risk of another prison sentence should he breach it.
Will it all start again? Does the need for him to try and prove that this ex-boyfriend does exist, if he's not ready to admit or accept that he's done this, where are we all going to go from here?
I think Paul honestly convinced himself it was someone else and not him. And I think if you speak to him now, he'd still say, I'm not guilty, because I think he believes he's not guilty.
There's nothing in this world that I wouldn't give to have 10 minutes with him and say, Paul, why?
Everybody wants it black and white, you're a good person or you're a bad person. But Paul was a very good husband for a very long period of time. You can't eradicate memories, you can't eradicate the good times. You can only recognise that they've changed. But I would really warn Amanda, because if he's capable of damaging her to such a degree, then he is capable of doing it again.
Amanda is very thankful for the thorough investigation carried out by Sussex Police.
I honestly and truly believe that if it wasn't for their help and support, I don't think I'd be here today. And I hope for other victims out there that it gives them some courage to come forward.
If you feel that you are being stalked, go to the police if you feel comfortable enough to do that. So always make sure friends and family are aware of what's happening. Look at support networks such as Veritas and Paladin. And importantly, if you're being sent gifts or letters or messages, you keep them. Even now, I don't know what Paul's endgame truly was, but one of the things that Amanda has also said to me was, if I hadn't called her to tell her that we were going to do something, she was suicidal. And that actually may have been where it ended, with Amanda taking her own life, because the psychological pressure on her was huge, really extreme.
Now, much has been done by government in recent years to try to improve how the criminal justice system tackles stalking. The Protection of Freedoms Act 2012 created 2 new offences of stalking to protect victims and bring perpetrators to justice. We have to keep learning from a case like Amanda's. Expert policing and brave victims working alongside each other were the key to a successful conviction in this case.